Now, ladies and gentlemen, Christmas is just around the corner. Now, we all have a bit of turkey and stuffing at the Christmas time.
Yeah.
But you're going to be looking like a dessert.
Oh.
With our sponsorship today. Tell them about us.
You know what? Dessert's nice, but I feel like gravy. To be honest, I feel like a bit of gravy.
Yeah, and you're looking like
gravy.
different gravy.
Different gravy.
Trust me, with Manscaped.
Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0.
Yeah.
Package.
Yeah. It's not just a trimmer, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just a trimmer, okay? This, as we've mentioned before, is a trimmer that, sorts out your downstairs area.
You can sort out your upstairs as well.
It can sort out your upstairs area. Just give it a wipe first, probably. I would probably say.
I'd recommend that.
Yeah. But we've got the Lawnmower 4.0. Which is just it's not your standard trimmer though, is it? Because it's got a light on.
LED, baby.
And it's waterproof, mate. So if you fancy having a shave in the shower, you're sorted.
It's like the LEDs on the bottom of the F1 cars when they run around Las Vegas.
That would be quality, actually. Yeah.
Decent. Just loads of Lawnmower 4.0s on the bottom of that Mercedes. That's actually what they did.
Yeah, exactly.
That's definitely true.
Yeah.
The crop preservable deodorant as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Smelling fresh.
Yeah, we're smelling fresh stuff to treat everything down there as well. And obviously, it's a bit of a sensitive area, isn't it? Realistic. You don't want to get cuts and nicks down there. No. And you won't. You won't with the Lawnmower 4.0.
So head to manscaped.com. Code last lap for guess how much? Guess what percentage? Go on.
Surely it's something like 10%. That's a big whack already, right?
More.
15%.
More.
Oh, you're treating us here.
He's a happy man.
20%. 20% off.
Oh my goodness.
Manscaped.com. Sensational stuff. The Lawnmower 4.0 to get stuff to treat your balls after you've shaved, and also you've got the little ear one, the nose one as well.
Ear, nose.
The little hairs in there as well. You're sorted.
Wherever there's a hair, Manscaped can sort you out.
Exactly.
Do it. Manscaped.com.
Check it out down in the description below.
Last lap. Boom. All right, you lot, don't forget to give us a follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And while you're at it, give us a 5-star rating. Trust me, it really does help us out.
Welcome to the last lap podcast of the season, but not during the off season, just to clarify, because we will still be here over the off season.
We will.
But the last of the season, because we've had the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. The Formula One finale is done.
Finished.
Yeah, we're done.
2022.
Finito.
Gone. It's been and gone.
Yeah, in a bit, 2022. Have a good time.
Yeah.
We're not talking about you anymore. Hey, well, I probably still will, to be honest. But
That's the end of it. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Like and subscribe.
Finished. And thank you, Matt, for sticking around after the live show.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me. I mean, we're all still very nicely dressed to celebrate the last race. Not as adventurous and as big of a stir-up as last year, but it's
never going to be.
Nothing's ever going to live up to that, no.
21 set unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, but everything. Just quite literally the entire season.
Anything that could have happened did happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then so much happened afterwards because of what happened.
Yes.
Yeah, it was crazy.
But there's still some good talking points to pull from the race, from the event. And
plenty of overtakes on track as well.
we have to kind of start with because Max already had the title wrapped up since Suzuka, earlier in the year. And there was a bit of a story around P2, which came close at the end. But the main talking point for sure, Sebastian Vettel. End of an era.
Danke, Seb.
I guess, first of all, did Aston Martin blow it on the strategy point of view? Because they also finished level with Alfa Romeo in the constructors' standings, but Alfa Romeo had a better finishing position, higher finishing position. So Alfa Romeo take P5, take the bag that's associated with that. Did Aston Martin bottle it, Niran? Because you were flip-flopping all race.
I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know where this information is coming from. I was very set on my thoughts on... You know what it was? It was like... so obviously for those, I don't know, that didn't realise or whatever, that like... Seb basically was battling for P8, right, with Esteban Ocon.
Yeah.
He was like right there. Esteban was one of the first people to pit him.
He was quicker than Ocon.
Yeah. He was much quicker than Ocon. He managed to get an overtake done, but then Ocon got him back, I'm pretty sure. He went wide, then he got beached on the curb.
Yes.
So the pace was there. Ocon then obviously came in. But then they just kind of carried on. The mediums to obviously do a one stop, but kind of just didn't have the pace and just kept falling back through the order. It was just weird to me because, like, when you're at the top of the best of the rest, the top of the midfield, you don't really need to risk things.
No.
Because you can't really go much further up. Like, fair, okay, calm, he could have overtaken Esteban Ocon, but he had the pace to do that anyway.
I guess Aston Martin knew that they needed 6 points. 5 wasn't enough. Like, they got 5 and it
Yeah.
wasn't enough to beat Alfa. They knew they needed 6 points, which would have been a P8 and P9. And, you know, Seb was really close to Ricciardo at the end.
Yeah.
You got to think that
It did almost work, let's be real.
it's easy in hindsight to criticise, but there was an opportunity there, wasn't there, Matt?
Yeah, I think so. And then, like, I don't think they properly split the strategy with Stroll as well, where you had different variables of it. So they were doing the one stop with Vettel. That's what I think they've sort of got. I think they were. I don't think they were expecting the undercut to be that well. But then the longer he was out, it just wasn't ever going to really work. And like, yeah, he got up to I think like P6 or P5 before anyone else before he had pitted himself. But then as soon as he does, he's then basically at the very back of the grid and then has to wait until everyone comes back into it again.
I mean, he was literally 19th. When
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like and it seemed like the strategy for Stroll was what he should have been on, because that's like,
Yes.
they like when everyone else is pitting around you, they kind of should show alarm bells, be like, all right, this is actually. We can actually see here they're getting progressively quicker on the harder tire, which hasn't been scrubbed in yet, and that's where you're just going to get faster lap times.
I think Aston Martin ultimately rolled the dice.
Yeah.
I think in hindsight, if they had played it conservatively, they would have got P8 and P9.
Yeah.
But
you shouldn't be rolling the dice though when it's like when you need 6 points. It's like you shouldn't just leave it to gamble. It's like, right, we're going to go in with a plan. It seemed like
I
they
think,
didn't have one.
especially when there's like, because he was not going to obviously beat anyone in the top 6, whatever the strategy.
No, it was always going to be a tough ass to beat Lando as well.
Yeah, and it was always, so you're gambling for one position.
Yeah.
And it's a man that you actually have the pace over already in the race. So there's very little to gain from doing a completely different strategy to everybody else.
But also Aston Martin, they're not normally comfortably within the top 10. So for them to get 6 points anyway on a normal race weekend, it's probably quite a tall question to ask.
Yeah.
So the fact that he got into a point anyway at the end of it, it's pretty decent. But that's where I would normally expect Aston Martin to kind of be. So I think even if they did change up the strategy, I'm not too sure they would get any
The
higher.
Alfa Romeos were nowhere.
No.
They were nowhere near the points this race. So, you know, I think I probably understand why they did it. It didn't work out at the end, but still, I think considering where they started at the season, and we all thought, you know, there's a lot of talk at the start of the season around Seb retiring, which at the time I thought was nonsense, to be honest. I didn't believe it. I felt like he was brought in for the long-term vision of the team. And you look at their progression from the start of this year to where they are now, and it's been like damn impressive. Like, how do we, you know, he's had started at Sauber, moved to Toro Rosso, Red Bull, Ferrari,
Aston Martin.
now Aston Martin.
Home.
And now home.
And now watching at home.
How do we reflect on his career? Where do we put Seb amongst?
I think it's a great example showing what the Red Bull junior program helped for him, because he got brought in as a Red Bull sort of junior, and then got into arguably like Red Bull's most dominant era of being like 2017 upwards, and it's just really goes to show that like he's such a great racer, and I think his change of like mannerism into how he approaches racing. He went into, when he swapped to go to Ferrari, clearly the reason he kind of did that is because like, all right, I've got my 4 championships now. I want to go to a really good heritage team and bring like to have like how can you capitalize a bit more on that? Like, all right, I've won my first race. Okay, now I've won my first championship. What can I do now? All right, I'm going to win a championship with
Ferrari.
With Ferrari.
Yeah,
I mean, can you imagine?
in the doldrums, you know what I mean?
Exactly. It's like obviously Michael Schumacher, who is his idol as well. There's loads of great photos he's been showing on his Instagram of like old stuff when he used to be karting. It's like, cool, I'm going to win a championship with the same team which my hero's done it with. Wasn't able to because obviously like the caliber of like Red Bulls and Mercedes and everything was still so good. But I think that like one of my we were talking earlier about on the last lap show that it's like one of my favorite moments of him was his first win with Ferrari, because you hear on the radio not only Seb's sort of like emotions winning for Ferrari, which they hadn't won for quite a while, I believe. But like it's like they were saying on the team, Ferrari are back. We're now winning sort of again, and it's obviously Seb's sort of like his delight seeing what could potentially be. But I think that's probably my sort of favorite bit. What you got yourself there?
I mean, my all-time favourite moment from Seb is probably like the first that put him on the map, which was like the win at Monza with Toro Rosso, because like I love an underdog for a start, and Toro Rosso were like still at that point kind of a bit Minardi-ish.
Yeah.
They'd only just kind of, I think they'd been Toro Rosso for like 3 years.
Yeah.
2006, I think.
They got taken over. Yeah.
Got taken over, yeah.
So it was kind of like, wow, you are in a bad car, I'll be totally honest, and you're like a 21-year-old Don who's just come through and like
won it on merit as well.
Won it on merit in tricky conditions, tricky qualifying, all that sort of jazz, and it felt like a
because it
moment
was raining massively, wasn't it? Right,
Yeah.
and he
Put it on pole, and just took off.
And everyone was kind of like, it was raining yesterday, so it's probably going to just be one of those, like when Hulkenberg, did it in Brazil. And then he actually just drove away from everyone. It was like, oh, wow, this guy's actually very serious. As I mentioned before, I'm always one of those people, as I said, I like the underdog. When domination starts to happen, I don't dislike someone at all because it's a show of how good someone is at their craft. But I'm always just kind of like, I just want someone else to win.
Of course.
So during that sort of 4 years, the first year, incredible. 2012, sensational end as well. I was loving that. But 2013, I was kind of like, that's okay.
And it was so dominant in 2013.
2013 was ridiculous. But again, just a show of how
but again,
sensational he is
like,
as a driver.
2010, first one, Du Bist Weltmeister.
Wasn't even leading the championship at any point until
he was the outsider
race.
going into that final race. And also like 2012, Alonso pushed him right to the end as well. So he didn't get all those 4 championships easy. It's easy to look back and be like, he just walked it. But 2011, 13 were convincing.
And there were good other cars during that period as well. Like it wasn't like the Mercedes era at the start, especially where it was, okay, you're just battling your team.
Plus, not without any controversy, like multi-21 and like with Webber, and it's where like it's kind of, we're seeing the same sort of things play out kind of now, but it's just gone to a new audience who maybe didn't watch the previous seasons because obviously they might not have been born yet or can't remember that much. It's all different. But do you have like a particular memory for?
Well, no, I think that in terms of F1 moments that make me like, when there's that buzz that you get inside and that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
That 2010 Du Bist Weltmeister.
Yeah.
It's not even so much, it's the whole moment together. The radio's perfect. All of that is just like, oh my God. And the fact that he came back as well, like he wasn't the favourite going in, like Webber was ahead of him. Alonso was ahead of him.
Yeah.
He wasn't the favourite going into that race and he turned it around. That was levels. But obviously like he's had such a long career and there's been amazing highs. There's been some tough lows for him as well.
Yeah.
I'm interested to think now that we've got to the end of his career, because I think when we're looking at drivers, at the end of we can look for an entire career. Where do you boys rate him relative to the other drivers of this kind of generation? Be that the Hamiltons, the Alonsos, and even like if we're talking like going back to the Schumachers and all that, there was kind of a bit of overlap. Well, where do we put Sebastian amongst them? Because I think it's tough because his highs, I think, have been higher. He's arguably been the most dominant F1 driver of all time in certain periods.
Yeah.
But you can't forget 2014 when Ricciardo quite convincingly outperformed him. You can't forget 2020 when Leclerc kind of took him to the cleaners.
Yeah.
There's those blots on his report card, which for me, I can't in earnest put him right up the sharp end with the Prosts, the Schumachers, the Hamiltons.
Yeah, I don't know what you think about
because
that.
they never had those moments.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because, as you said, he was so dominant between 2010 and 2013. But even when he was at Ferrari and he was up against Lewis, there was those little moments like the Germany race, for example, where just kind of...
That'll always be the big one.
Yeah, just kind of bottled it, just binned it from the lead at home. Yeah, fine, tricky conditions, but like that was a massive...
Because it was like credit to him for getting into that position.
Yeah.
But you have to finish the job. And I mean, whether that car... I think that car was competitive enough to win it in 2018.
Just about. I don't think it was the better car out of the two.
No. I don't think it was better, but I think it was like Ferrari Red Bull this year.
Yeah. Comparable.
Yeah.
To a point where if you complete the job, you win the championship. Probably.
Yeah, as well with like good strategy as well. That's also a big factor. It's not just like you just going away with it. Talking about the all-time thing, I think there is an argument to say that he should be up there with it. I mean, like you were saying before, there's been moments where it hasn't really worked out, but I think that kind of humanizes it a little bit more to where you got like these amazing drives, like Hamilton with his 7-year kind of streak, and you've obviously got Schumacher as well. With the Schumacher one, I would say that like there is a bit of an asterisk on it because it was such a different era. And then if like, for example, then he went to Mercedes and he wasn't dominating there. He did all right, but he wasn't like sort of...
Yeah, when Michael Schumacher went to Mercedes, I think it's easier for people to look past that. But that was as much part of his career as the Ferrari.
Totally.
Yeah,
Absolutely. But I think like with Vettel though, I think you've got those 4 great years there, but if you were to remove those, would you think then the rest of his time in F1 has been like still been absolutely stellar?
Look, again, it's like with Ricciardo.
Yeah.
You know, if you take away his McLaren period,
Yeah.
he's, you know, going into 2021, he was, for me, like top 3 drivers on the grid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was I don't think that was an unpopular opinion necessarily to put him right up there.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like, I think it makes me appreciate the drivers who have been able to, the very few who've always been up there every single year. It's like beating their teammates as well.
Yeah. I think that's what it comes down to. Like, the thing is with Seb, like, any driver is going to have a start point, peak, and drop off.
Yeah.
And like with Michael Schumacher, that drop off was at Mercedes. Sebastian's was that final season at Ferrari where he was getting his arse handed to him by Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
And he was spinning a lot. And to be honest, I'm so glad that he came back from that and ended on a high with Aston Martin. And it's kind of
100%,
looked,
man.
because I was really concerned about that time.
Yeah.
At the end with Sebastian. I know he wasn't, you know, he just didn't really get along with the car. The car was terrible in fairness, but it was a little bit of a concern. I think a lot of the other drivers that are the so-called best out of this era haven't had that bad of a season. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
But like Seb's had crazy highs, really, really bad lows. Overall, he's a 4-time world champion still at the end of the day.
And like an incredible character. Like,
Yeah.
I know he says like, oh, he won't be remembered. He will be remembered.
Yeah. You know what? I was actually interested to like, what was the sort of switching point? Because you mentioned in the show that sort of obviously like, he was kind of the pantomime villain at one point, you know, during Multi 21.
You're talking about this like about the dominance before, because some people, like you're mentioning there, like I'm like you, I love an underdog story, because then if your favorite is just always like winning, like if you're like, for me, I don't, for example, watch football, but if I was to just choose a random team who has been really successful, then I'm just winning the entire time. But whereas if you were to go with a team or a driver who aren't doing that well, it means when they do win, it makes it even more special for you, apart from just having a beer every single time when your normal team wins.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the underdogs thing is a huge one with that, and it's a bit of a different one.
Where was that sort of point? I feel like public opinion almost of Seb changed.
I think, once he, obviously 2014, that Red Bull wasn't competitive.
Not really.
That was like, Ricciardo won a few races, but it wasn't competitive to fight against the Mercedes. I think, once, I guess with that season where it was a struggle and then go into Ferrari, because there's always been like, I know it's a bit of a meme, but everyone is low key like a bit of a Ferrari fan.
Yeah.
Like you can't...
when you're young and you're playing with like cars and something, it's always the red car that you want to play with, because it's the stereotypical race color car.
Yeah. And I think that's such an emotive team. And I think that was an environment that it's easy to remember, again, like you say with Hockenheim, but he won, I think hasn't he won like the second most races of all time for Ferrari, or he's like up there.
I'm not too sure that,
definitely second or third.
Yeah.
So like
he probably is just behind Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, he had loads of
Barrichello
success at Ferrari, and that can't be forgotten. And I guess maybe where obviously then almost like Lewis adopted that role / Mercedes adopted that role, because obviously you had Rosberg winning 2016 as well. They adopted that dominance, and then all of a sudden everyone's gunning for them.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of where
I think that's for me. Like I see it more like when he was at Ferrari, where I think the last little bit of where we saw Vettel's like villain-esqueness, as it were, which I don't really want to say, because it's more just because people don't like people who are dominant, therefore they start hating them for whatever reason. But the last time we saw that is where Vettel swapped the position numbers in Parc Ferme. Where he...
I love that, by the way.
Which, I know. It's exact same. I absolutely love it. But that is the essence of like what his original Vettel character was now. You know, being so butthurt about like getting a penalty and then thinking, no, that I was actually robbed of my actual race win. Having to then go in and being just, there's no point in doing it. It's more him wanting to prove a point, being like, no, this is how it should be. Being a bit bratty.
It's actually kind of an interesting crossover of his current personality and his old one, of being petty enough to want to do it in the first place.
Totally,
and not actually caring enough about the consequences of doing it in the first place as well.
And it's
kind of like what he's like now. He just doesn't care anymore.
And I think just after that is when we've now seen this very much like this environmentally family friendly person, where obviously he still had a family then, but like I think he's now come the other side of where you know, his wife always comes to all of his races, who helps him out with like mental stuff. And I think that's where it's changed.
You literally grow up in the public eye. As a driver, you go through all that transitional phase from a teenager to an adult with kids and a wife. Like his wife, you know, they went to school together. You know what I mean? Like that's the,
they literally school sweethearts, because that's what he was mentioning it on the Beyond the podcast.
Yeah, and again, like we see more of these drivers than we ever have in the past. We see more of their character, their personalities, and I think that's all kind of part of it. And there's been that full kind of I think Sebastian's career has been, you know, he's won 4 championships. He's had really high highs. He's had some rubbish lows.
Yeah.
He's changed so much as a total career, it's one that like I said, Seb will not be forgotten by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, not at all. A multitude of different drivers who were having their quote unquote final race in Formula One as of right now.
Yep.
During this Grand Prix, we had the GOAT himself, Nicholas Latifi, bowing out.
You asked this question. What will he do next?
For me, I think IndyCars. Like, he's from North America. It's open wheel in America.
What's next for Latifi?
It just is that.
NASCAR.
Do you reckon?
Well, yeah, because he's so used to like crashing and spinning into people and stuff. It's like perfect.
Can I honestly just say that clip of that guy wall riding, and that A just summed up NASCAR beautifully, and B was one of the best things I've ever.
I think I saw somewhere that they're obviously now going to be banning that because so they're like, because obviously,
I guess
everyone will just do it on the
but
final lap.
it's a little bit like it's one of those rules which aren't like sort of really written, but you kind of have to write it. It's a little bit like where you go to a swimming pool and someone says like no pooing in the swimming pool. Like, okay, someone's clearly pooed.
Someone has done that before.
So now I have to write a rule here. So now they've had to write a rule, be like, no wall riding is allowed.
NASCAR rule makers in like 300 years will be like, how the fuck did that end up there?
I just can't see him making the move to IndyCar. And I understand your reasoning of because he is. Thank you. That hair has been annoying me for a little while. So there's been a little hair on Niran's microphone just here. I wanted to lean over and grab it, but I couldn't. But I thought it might be weird if you mid-sentence me like, thank you.
Just put your fingers in his mouth. That would have been a weird.
Just plucking on mustache.
Come here, you.
I'm just carrying the pod.
But I understand the reason though, because obviously he's Canadian. IndyCar is on that side of the pond. But I just think it's. He hasn't. Yes, I know.
You can buy a seat in IndyCar.
Totally, and I think if he was going to IndyCar, that's exactly how he's going to do it. He would not get that on pure merit. And yes, I know he did all right in F2, but in fairness, though, he's in there for quite a few years. The other caliper there wasn't as good. But we're seeing, we've got like Marcus Ericsson, who's done Indy, and obviously got Roman Grosjean as well, who've had some success in there. Obviously, Marcus has obviously gone on to win the Indy 500. We watched him together of him winning the Indy 500. Yep. Roman Grosjean's done all right, but then how I rate those drivers compared to Latifi. Latifi's still at the very bottom of the pack there.
Yeah. I think so I hear that he is, that's fine. But obviously in terms of like other European, well, not European drivers, but drivers who have crossed over from Europe back over to America is like, was that kind of controversial? Santino Ferrucci.
Yeah.
He went back and has been like okay-ish for a guy that didn't even make it to F1 and wasn't even very good in F2.
Callum Ilott went there.
Put it on pole. Even Alex Palau, who won the championship, was like bopping about in GP3 like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Being pretty average.
I think so. What was it? He finished.
Not to take away from IndyCar quality, by the way. There's good drivers
there. Absolutely. And
that doesn't necessarily the transition over doesn't necessarily.
I think that's where my thing is. It's not. It would be a paid drive. It's more because I consider the IndyCar talent to be so high already.
Yeah.
That like him to transition over, he would still be very much at the very back of the pack. Like that's my point for that.
It's difficult because sometimes you get these drivers, right? Like Charles Leclerc, like Max Verstappen, like George Russell, they're always like in their junior career, they're always winning. They're always at the top. And you look, say Alex Palou, I can't remember what year it was. He was like P6, I think, in like F3 or something in like 2018 maybe. And like I know because Mick Schumacher won the championship where Alex finished like P6. Then he went to IndyCar, had a bit of a meh first season, and then won it second year, and was just able to turn this performance. What I don't understand with Latifi is that in F2, like he had multiple F2 seasons. He they finished second. Yeah, he was quite a way off De Vries, but there was still, Luca Giotto, Sergio Sette Camara, like there was some solid drivers in there. But he's been so far off in F1.
Yeah.
He's been like not even, you know, when we talk about certain drivers, like Bottas has been quicker than Joe this year and he's a rookie coming in. Like,
but it's still close.
He's been so far off. Occasionally he'll get close in qualifying. But we look at the race. I don't get it.
He's 45 seconds.
I don't understand it.
This season especially.
He's shown that he can race competitively in Formula 2, which is not an easy championship.
Yeah.
I just don't get why in 3 seasons he hasn't been able to. That's why I hope that if he was to go to IndyCar, we would see a better version of Nicholas that we just haven't been able to see in F1.
But for me, like, I think it's more because I'm against really sort of pay drivers coming into this sort of thing. I would rather have someone who's actually got the talent to actually see the best of the best racing rather than someone just paying to get their way into it. And with Latifi, like, I'm full on strongly like sort of against him kind of racing it, because I don't think he deserved that spot in F1 or maybe even IndyCar, because yes, you've got the money to back yourself, but you don't have the talents to do that. And this is where Formula One is to showcase the best of the best drivers. And for me, like, as a spectator, it's just comical to see that. And it shouldn't be the thing of like, we're all shit talking him. It's like, no, we want to be talking about, that was a great overbike battle, this one here. Not like he's like 45 seconds off his teammate after like 10 laps or so. And it's like, and sometimes, he has had glimpses of where he's been good in qualifying.
Silverstone Q3.
Yeah, exactly that. But then it comes to the race, and it's like, okay, then you haven't trained enough as an athlete to keep up, because it might be something down to fatigue, it might be down to
working with the team. I think
working with the team. Like, there was even, I think what was most prominent about it was in Brazil for me, where Bottas and Zhou were behind Latifi, I think, and Bottas was able to tell Zhou, who was in front of him, who was in front was Latifi.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like, Latifi's braking way too early into this thing. Tell him to dive down and turn 8 or 9 or whatever it was.
Zhou didn't end up doing it in the end, but Bottas did.
Yeah, because it's like, I can see how he's driving from 2 cars ahead of me, that he's just not. And on a track like Brazil, I say this as if I'm a driver, I'm not, just from like F1 game, basically. It's quite a quick track you can easily learn. It's a bit like Austria. You can pretty much gauge where the braking zone is, where you can turn, go. And once you kind of got that locked into your mindset of like, okay, I'm going to always brake here. But for F1 drivers, they've got to be constantly adapting and stuff. And I think that's what Latifi's case is here. It's like he wasn't able to adapt that well.
There's clearly a weakness there. But look, nice enough bloke, hoping the best, but at the end of the day,
I love his coffee. I love the coffee.
He's not been competitive.
I absolutely love the coffee.
Yeah. Well,
but he's
not coming back to F1.
No,
but another driver who hopes to, Mick Schumacher. I think we need to basically posture, if he does return, where will he return? Because there's a lot of drivers. He won't be the only one wanting to return in 2024 or get a seat for the first time in 2024.
For what I will say as well, he actually collided with Latifi during a race.
Exactly.
And it was Mick Schumacher's fault. I saw that and was like, that might be the reason why Hülkenberg is getting the seat next season.
Yeah, they need stability in that team,
Yeah. But yeah, what do you make of Mick Schumacher's chances of making it back into Formula One?
Yeah, it's a hard one, because at the beginning of the season, I did shit on him quite a lot, more than I should have. I do hold my hands up to that.
Yeah,
morely because it was like it's part of the whole like, it's fun to like shit on someone, but then he's proved me wrong this season. It's in the second half after Monaco, basically, is where it's got transpired that Gunther Steiner said to him, mate, stop crashing, otherwise you've got no chance whatsoever. And then you did see this bit of a change with him, and he has been performing.
Middle of the season, Mick Schumacher was genuinely solid for me, and matching Kevin Magnussen.
I don't think pace is the problem.
And I think it's just the reliability stuff. And if he was to return, it is a struggle to see where he's going to come into. It's interesting to see as well with F2 what's going to happen with them next year. What drivers could potentially come in to be into it. I do think there's been a bit of an issue recently where drivers have been progressing up from F3 to F2 to F1 so quickly, but they need a couple of seasons to like sort of get a bit more training under their belt. A bit like, George Russell, Lando Norris, Alex Albon, like you got the Twitch quartet where they were all doing so well in F2 together and all pushing each other really well. We haven't had anything like that.
I guess teams are desperate to get the next Max Verstappen, aren't they?
But that's the thing. But now that it's getting to the point where you got a team like Haas having to bring back someone like Nico Hülkenberg, who, he's a good driver. He's not the best, but he can do the job perfectly. But that's what teams are just needing, just to make the car decent, to then find someone like a Max Verstappen.
To be honest, it's been a bit of a weird F2 season in terms of like the people who you kind of expected to be that next like breakout star, like Dennis Hauger or Teo Porcher. I mean, he was unlucky. Probably should have been involved in a.
He's been very unlucky. He should be closer, definitely.
Yeah, he's like the next guy out of that field. Realistically, he'll go to Alfa at some point.
Liam Lawson.
It's funny even Liam Lawson. It's just kind of like
it's funny how quickly, because this is Teo Porcher's second season in F2.
It is, yeah.
And like he was 18 last year in his first year, and you think, oh my God, he's so young. But like, he's the same age as Jack Doohan. Like Jack Doohan's had a really good rookie season as well.
Yeah,
this is why I worry for Mick, because you've got all these, like you say, you've got Drogovic, who's Aston Martin, you've got Pourchaire, who's I think has to win F2 next year, and I think he'll have a good chance. You've got Doohan, who's going to be up there. You've got, Behrman, you've got Maloney.
I was about to say the F3 grid from this season has been fucking
Behrman,
wild.
Maloney.
So next season it's going to be crazy.
This is what
getting out of F2 is going to be mad.
And this is what I mean, because there's talk at the moment. I don't think it's confirmed of Mick Schumacher being a reserve at Mercedes.
Right. Okay.
Because Toto Wolff has come out and said, the Schumacher name, connection to Mercedes.
And also, he's no longer in the Ferrari academy anymore.
Exactly.
So he got dropped from that. So.
And obviously, Stoffel has gone over to Aston Martin as a reserve.
He has. Yes.
Nick De Vries has gone to AlphaTauri, so Mercedes don't have a reserve. So Schumacher would fit into that, and he wants to come back. I think.
Where would that be though?
I think his best opportunity. He has to rely on like someone having a stinker. Like if Sargent has a stinker, or if Albon someone snatches Albon from Williams at the end of next year.
Yeah.
I think Williams with that Mercedes connection is probably that's the only one I can kind of rationalise.
Yeah.
I think going Mercedes as a test driver is such a good shout though, because of the places they can technically put him.
Yeah.
With Mercedes like power unit connections. Being like a Williams.
But where else could he go?
That's the thing. I think that's the issue that like Nick De Vries also had, where his managing. I believe his manager is pretty much Toto, not Mercedes. But then they weren't able to get him like into like Williams, for example. Although they've got to do like free practice one drives and then was able to actually do the actual test, full on race, replacing Albon after he had his appendix taken out. But in terms of actually putting him into a seat, that's ultimately why he's gone into AlphaTauri, because it's just trying to figure out what's best for him. And I think if Mick was to go to Mercedes, I personally can't see him returning, in all honesty, because if you've got other drivers who are also out of the season at the moment, like if you've got like Ricciardo versus Mick Schumacher, you would go to Ricciardo, not only because it's just like a more experienced driver, he's got race wins and everything like that, but also it's also about the media and marketing around the drivers as well. And I think with Mick Schumacher, if we change his name completely, would he still have the same?
I'm honestly not even. No, he would have made it because he won F2 in his second season. But
I mean, like in terms of like now, I mean, sorry.
Now. If
he's a competent, and I think like he's had a great end of this season. With Haas, and it's a shame that he's been dropped for and he's not had another one to come.
The thing is,
it's what a team want.
Alex Albon had a really tough 2020. And kept himself in the paddock, kept knocking on those doors, weighed up his opportunities, he went over to Indy, had a chat with Roman about IndyCar potentially being a thing, and then got that Williams opportunity. And I think Alex was, as much as Alex did what he needed to do and put himself in the places to get that opportunity, he was also very fortunate that opportunity at Williams opened up. George moving on, George giving him a good word and all that. I think, Mick's got to rely on a lot of factors outside of his control. All he can do is, I think, Mercedes reserve is the right move. Stay in the paddock. Just get your CV out there. Get in everyone's like...
so you never know. Dip his eyes every now and again.
And he does have that name which is going to help him. I don't think that's going to be the be all and end all. Like it's not helped him stay at Haas.
No.
But I do think that is going to stand him in good stead. But there's a lot of challenges. But Williams for me is the only one I can really rationalise.
Even then, it's
which obviously they're back in a minute, but who knows? Hopefully the regulations do their job.
Indeed. Hopefully we'll see them.
And then should we briefly talk on Ricciardo?
Briefly. Notice how it's briefly. Let's just gloss over that other one.
I feel like we talked about.
Well, no, because I don't think it will be the end.
No, I don't think so either.
I think he will be back.
Yeah.
But obviously he has made it quite clear he wants some time off.
Yes.
Which I think there's been a lot of criticism of that decision, because obviously going with a smaller team. What do you, especially as a Ricciardo
Superfan,
lifer, what do you make of his decision? Do you think it's the right one?
Yeah, absolutely. If I was to sit here and be like, oh no, it's not him, it's the car and everything like that, I'd just be splurting lies. And you need to take accountability of he just hasn't been able to adapt to the car. There are certain reasons for that, and which bore everyone if I was to try and blag it all the way through. But you do just need a mental reset, and it's where like, I think a fact you mentioned even earlier today, it was that he hasn't ever missed an F1 race. Like there was glimpses of it where, even the Bahrain testing, he missed the first test session because he had COVID.
Yep.
But that was probably the closest thing he's ever had to that, to missing something like that.
Yeah.
And he's lived and breathed, F1 since he's been a kid, basically. And I think he just needs that 1 year where he, so very much, it hasn't been confirmed, but thanks to Helmut Marko with the exclusive, he's going to become their reserve / test driver. So basically, doing, like, still coming to some races, like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 of them, and then doing a lot of the, publicity stunts, taking the old demo car, doing like donuts around like Vegas or going up a mountain or what have you, for marketing purposes.
Yeah.
And I think it's not a mental reset of going back to his farm back in Australia, going out with like no phones. It's nothing like that, and just taking the year out like that. I think it's more that he will be so close and not used to not being out of it that will give him the itch and give him the motivation to be like, right now I'm going to come back in again and be more regimented. Because I think for him personally, I think having Renault was the intermediate of like, okay, I can kind of do what I want, but I can still like have a bit of like, I'm still regimented in my thing. Moving to McLaren, I think he was given full freedom of like marketing and like how he does his helmet designs. And I think he just needs a bit more of that. All right, no, come back to the office on the Monday at 9 a.m. This is how you're going to work now. You've got nothing
But
to
also,
say
it was
with
going well at Renault.
Yeah, it was going great at Renault. Yeah. And I think that's
And that would have always helped.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's where like it would be good for him to have this year out, be like regimented again, or having like being told exactly what he needs to do. We're not having you on this race, so off you go. And I think that need and want to be back in the sport would be great.
I just think he's like been in the sport for so long now, and he's had such good times, and he's had some like tough moments. I think back to Monaco when the podium that should have been, the win, that should have been,
redemption day. Yeah.
Now it must have been such a like draining like time at McLaren. Yeah. I just think he's burnt out.
Yeah, honestly,
I think it's literally it's work burnout, and I just think. Clearly, he thinks taking some time off is the right thing.
Since 2011, I want to say, with HRT, and then 2012 was his first like full season. I want to say, with AlphaTauri, Toro Rosso at the time. So yeah, it could well be. I think these drivers need a break sometimes. Yeah, the elite ones don't, but
I think as well, like,
in the last 2 years.
Everyone's different. Everyone's like this. Is what I mean. Like whatever decision he ultimately makes is clearly the right one for him. Like he's old enough.
That's what it is.
And I think he understands himself enough. I think to know when like this is the right choice.
Yeah, and I think it's easy for like many fans and spectators to say, "Oh, it's better for you to remain in the sport than not." But I think he's smarter than that.
Which it might literally be like but that's taking the human out of it.
Yeah, and I think Sebastian Vettel actually touched on this really great in the Beyond podcast he did, where he was like, yes, in hindsight, I could have absolutely retired at the end of Ferrari, but I didn't want to because I wanted to keep racing.
Yeah.
And I think it's, and that's basically where you see so many of these great drivers, there is that peak and they never quit while they're ahead. And the only person who's done that is Nico Rosberg, which shocked all of us.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That's him doing what he wanted to do. Yeah, because he's like, all right, I've done the championship now. What's the point? So like, if you look at Michael Schumacher, yes, he was super dominant. When Mercedes dropped off, then he didn't perform as well, and then he left. And then you got Lewis Hamilton, who this is his first season where he's never gotten pole or got a win, and he got beaten by his teammate in the standings, regardless of what happened in the junior season. But basically, that's kind of what plateaued there. And with Vettel, the same with this here. I think Ricciardo, he doesn't want to fall that step of like, all right, I've gone for this team. Now I've gone to Renault. Now I've gone to McLaren. Now I've gone to Haas. And now I've gone to Williams. It's like, you just seen the
progression.
It's like absolutely. So of course, when he's like, no, I want to be in a team where I can actually win races again. So that's why I think, the game plan is, to be reserved for the year. And then he has ties with AlphaTauri before they get bought over by whomever it might be. Or if the relationship doesn't work out with Perez, then he could be an intermediate for like a year at Red Bull. I highly, highly doubt that will actually happen. But can you imagine if that did?
Yeah, I mean, again,
he won the championship.
I think that Alfa Romeo Sauber team is much more appealing now that we know Audi are going to take it over.
There's a lot of people that are looking out for that seat now.
Bottas is very much really excited by it. So.
We'll see next year, Joe and Bottas. I think Joe's been closer to Valtteri than I was expecting.
Yeah, totally.
But obviously, those are the drivers drivers going out of the sport, we've got to also talk about Logan Sargent, who put it P5 in the F2 feature race this morning.
Yeah.
I think you could tell over the course of this weekend that he's been nervous.
His whole F1 career is relying
any
on
time
today.
it could have just been completely ruined for him. It's just it's mad. Yeah.
Scary.
He was relying on a lot of things outside of his control. I think, it looked good after the sprint race on Saturday, but he got the job done, got it over the line, finished P4 in the end. Lawson jumped him right at the end, took the P3, but he won't care. Like he's
just like, happily, just don't touch me.
I'm an F1 driver now.
Yeah.
What are our expectations? Because, there's all this talk of, an American driver, blah, 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 which is cool. But I think also that Williams needs to be competitive enough to give the US fans someone to really get behind and excited about, at least in the midfield.
Yeah.
Because just because he's American isn't going to...
No.
Boom, sweet, done.
It's a difficult one because I'll be totally open and honest. I've not watched as much F2 as I would have wanted to this season. But like, it's not. It's a pretty strong field, but it's not like top 10. When we had that Lando fucking George Albon season, that was crazy. I mean, that was ridiculous.
And they're proving by their performances now that was. But this has still been a very
but ultimately,
solid.
it's a solid because he was a rookie going into the season.
Yeah,
it is his second season.
Logan's rookie going into
into. So I mean, look, listen, finishing fourth in your first season F2 is like pretty
top rookie. Yeah.
Have a pat on the back,
Best
mate.
performing
That's not
rookie.
bad. Like, that's impressive.
Good on you, lad. Yeah.
Good on you, lads. It's one of them ones. In terms of like my expectations, I think for him next season, I would not expect him to be like beating Alex Albon, for example.
No, not at all.
Not at all. I think Alex is far too experienced for that, and he's shown how good he's been this season and fighting in the mid pack. But yeah, you're right. Williams, they need to be more competitive. You can't have a Williams finishing 18th every weekend, otherwise the whole he's an American driver kind of just falls away. Because
I think
doing much with it.
And I think the Williams team have started to make moves into like actually getting, because if you look like back 2-3 years ago, they were very much comfortably at the back.
Oh, yeah.
And if you go for like further 10 years ago, they were like getting P3s, P4s and like wins and stuff. It's just like, I think, this is the point now where we've always said that like you just need a good second driver to actually progress the car moving forward, because then you can't develop the car.
Which is why Haas have done what they've done.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where like if you've got like someone else at Latifi, not to shit on him, but like, yes, I will. If he's 45 seconds off from his teammates, why would the team then take on any of your instructions?
That is holding the team back.
Yeah, totally. If you're like, the car's a bit understeering, it's like, well, the other driver is saying the opposite and he's much quicker than you, so clearly you're not connecting with the car as well.
Especially if you're competing within the midfield. Like, for example, last year, Gasly was doing a much better job than Tsunoda. And that cost AlphaTauri constructors positions, 100%. Tsunoda not being as close. Obviously, it's a rookie season, so you can forgive that and understand that. But yeah, the fact that Williams are at the back, like, I think 2 Alex Albons would have got them closer.
Yeah.
But I still think they'd be at the back of the midfield.
Yeah, they're not quite competitive enough now.
But next year...
But at the end of this season, definitely, Haas and Alfa Romeo have dropped back towards them.
Massively.
AlphaTauri have had some stinkers in the second half of the season as well. I think going into next season.
But it just goes to show, though, that like you have to like sort of Nick de Vries, for example, coming in with doing like 3 sessions in completely different F1 cars.
Yeah.
To then jump in and basically slap up the teammate of Latifi. That for me just goes to show not only the capability of how great Nick de Vries is as just jumping in and adapting it well, but just going, if you have the right person behind the wheel, this team could be like, he got points like at Monza and Latifi was just dead last, and it's just like it just goes to show that like even like Logan Sargent could be that person to like make this team actually make it look like that we're no longer meant to be at the back, because it's just literally has been just bad drivers.
Well, the thing is, right, if these regulations do their job and it brings the field together, if you're not good enough in the car, you're going to get exposed.
1,000,
Because all the teams should, like, I'm thinking by 2025, I think we'll have a really I'm hopeful, and that's the point of the, cost cap and
the big ones to look out for. It's Williams, Haas, and Aston Martin. Those are the big ones.
You can't have a hanger-oner anymore. You've got to have 2 competitive drivers. Otherwise, you're going to lose out massively. We know that the teams still value the constructors' money over the 5%
It's a business at the end of the day. It's business. It's entertainment for the fans, but it's a business for them to make money.
And if you've got a guy hanging around at the back who's not picking up points, but he's paying some bills or whatever,
what's the point?
You run the risk of it not actually being worth it. If the constructor's money you lose out on.
Before we finish the pod,
indeed,
let's do some quick from the hip driver ratings over the course of the year.
I want to do a season rating as well, like how we rate the season.
Oh yeah, let's do season overall then.
Okay. I'm seeing the montage in the background. Sort of.
Season overall out of 10. I think, given it's the new set of regulations, you know what? I'm contemplating saying an 8 because I've actually been very when you add the context of the first season of new regulations.
Yeah.
I'm saying 8. I think that might be quite generous, but I'm saying 8.
That's generous.
That is
for me.
generous,
That's
yeah.
generous for me. Just because like there has been a lot of action in terms of like.
Because 2021 was like 11 out of 10.
Yeah, we can't compare it to like 2011.
That will never be
2021. Sorry, you've got to compare it to like
eclipsed.
2020 and 2019 and 2018, all that jazz. I think the problem for me is I love a good title fight, or at least a sniff of one. Do you know what I mean? And
That's the main reason that I'm thinking maybe a 7. But
by July, that was dead and buried. Like as soon as Paul Ricard happened, it was like, that's done. Like so if you're 50% of the way through the season and the Drivers' Championship is wrapped up.
Yeah.
For me, it can't be higher than a 7, just because, like, as much as, cool, the battle for, like, 4th in the Constructors' Championship between Alpine and McLaren and the battle for 2nd in the championship between Perez and Leclerc, unless the races are good from that point onwards, like, I've not got much of a... I've got interest, obviously, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
There's not something to really go, oh, shit,
Sink
who's
your
going to
teeth
win them?
into,
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, the races as well petered off towards the end of the year.
Yeah, I think
Which didn't help too. You know, Mexico, for example, like, Jesus Christ. US was all right, not too bad. Maybe a 7.
Miami was awful.
Miami was shocking. Zandvoort, terrible.
I think I'm a 7 as well, and I think
probably like a 6.5.
because there's so much as well. Not just only that,
6.5.
I think it's like there's so much because obviously they've got the new regs in, but there's so much learning everyone still needs to do. So like the tires from Pirelli were awful. There's a reason why none of the drivers really like using it. They all were using the softs towards the beginning of the season, and they all realized no, the medium and the hards are just the way to go. Softs just you don't get anything really any advantage from that. But then it's also down to like stewarding as well. They're still having issues there. They've got 2 different guys looking over it in different stewarding teams. That still needs to sort out because it's more just. We get frustrated when we see like Ferrari mess up like strategy because we can see that as clear as day and be like, what are you doing? And it makes no sense. And that's more part of the racing fun of it because it's a team sport. But then when there's other amenities around there of which could be changed and it's not been tackled properly, like a good example is Saudi. You know, they had that huge like missile strike and the fire next to the track and they still carried on with it. But it's small things like that. It was not small things, I should say, in relation to like, it's issues like that, which there's still not been real proper forefront of thinking about it, and the races as well. Like Miami, for example, was like the biggest like waste of like time ever. Like I talk about fucking blue balls. Like you had so much hype about it, and then just nothing came of it.
Yeah,
it was just.
There was never a good track. I think this is part of the problem as well. Like a lot of the quote unquote new tracks that we've had over like the last 10 years, like the only one that's provided consistent entertainment for me is Baku.
Yeah.
I reckon. Yeah. But that's just the nature of it's mental. Like you drive through a fucking castle halfway through the lap. Like obviously it's going to be difficult to get around in one piece.
Yeah.
But a lot of the more sort of stuff, I know we don't have Sochi anymore, but Jesus Christ. That was one of the worst tracks I've ever seen in my life.
But that's the thing. So like I was lucky enough to speak to Tilke, the guys who actually create these racetracks and stuff. And a lot of the time they're like really restricted on where they can and can't go. Yeah. And like with Baku, for example, there's the old town, the new town, and F1 wanted to go to the new town. They were like, no, let's go to the old town because we can go through the caster section. Yeah. We have to re-profile loads of things, but this will make better racing.
A bit of character.
And then you have places like Sochi where they're very much like, no, you have to race here. And we're like,
what can we do with this?
Try it out. And it's a bit like Vegas, you know, as well. It's like that's obviously for the new year. I'm optimistic for it, but also I just know how much work has gone into it because they've had to get agreements from the government there, the 8 different hotels which are featured in it. They had to walk around and all these different parameters. Yeah. But then you've got places like Miami where the track, it just didn't deliver on good racing. And so I'm hoping like the tyres get better next season because the tyres just clearly haven't really worked here. But
what it's worth, the first Baku Grand Prix was terrible.
True.
So you never know. Yeah. We might get good Miami ones after this.
True. And hopefully they sort that wall out that gave Esteban Ocon about 50 G.
Mate,
his spine.
Fucking hell,
like the most innocuous little crash as well. It didn't even look like anything special. But
gone from the Pirellis exploding on their own to now just being way too hard.
Gone the complete other way. What about driver ratings then?
Yeah.
Latifi. 2.
Out of 10?
2 out of 10.
Out of 10.
I'm saying 2.
Honestly, 1. And it's not
1.
0 because of Silverstone Q3. Because that, to be fair, was quite impressive. I saw that and was
There's
like,
a
fair
couple
play,
of
Nicholas.
quali moments where he's got close to Alex, but
Yeah, for me that's 1. Doesn't matter.
He's checked out.
I think you said it best there, where he got close to Albon. Never
Didn't beat him.
Didn't beat him or anything. He got close. It's
Alex
like,
is just sick.
It's like, mate, when you're watching a qualifying session, when you see them all within like 5/10 of each other from like top 10, you're like, oh, that is precise. Everything over there. And then you see a second, it's a bit like, mate, what's going on here? Like, no,
That's a 1.3 average.
It's
then,
again like
of the 3 of us.
yeah, his qualifying's not even been catastrophic. It's just the race pace. Like it's like the race
Nowhere.
starts
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
goes, yeah, mate, I'll see you in a bit,
100%.
lads. I'll see you at the end.
Which is
And it's so
ultimately
strange.
that's where the points
What it
are
comes
going.
down to. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Or not 1 in his case.
Harsh.
We did score some points this year, though. Fortunately enough for him. Albon.
Albon.
Even I'd say it's really difficult to rate Alex.
It is because, who
He
his
was against
teammate was.
Verstappen at Red Bull, where Gasly's got destroyed. Perez is.
Are we just ranking him on? We're just ranking him on this season.
on this season.
Yeah.
I think Albon gets like a... Because I think... The problem is it's really hard to judge that Williams and how bad or good it
I
really
can't give
is.
him more than a 7.
I think
7 as
I
well
think a
for me.
7's calm because like against Latifi, it's really difficult to judge whether he's really, really been top tier or whether he's just been like
Which was that was a question around George Russell, I think, as well, when he was at Williams.
Yeah.
It's like, because he didn't have a teammate where he was against Kubica, who obviously wasn't the same driver as he was before, and Latifi, it was very hard. Now, obviously, we can see that George is different gravy, quality, but
it's also the same with with Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher, where obviously they were just so far behind everyone else because of how bad the car was. But obviously, every single time, Mick Schumacher was like lapping him up, but now when you actually do have a capable driver to be in that, and it's
because Albon's had like I think his average finishing position has not been. I don't. You look at the constructors and you think they're a million miles off, but they're not actually. He's got a lot of P12s.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think if you judge him against like the rest of the mid-table, or like the rest of the guys like sort of down there, like your Haas's and Alfa Romeos, and especially the second half of the season, he's been beating them quite consistently.
Yeah,
I think you've got to give him a decent.
I think it just goes to show, like 2 years ago, like George Russell was crying in Parc Ferme because he got a point, and now you see Albon doing bits and stuff. It's kind of like that's not me. That's more the development on the car. I'd say. But you just need a driver for it. Yeah. So, but I would say 7 because it's so fascinating to see what is going to happen next year. I think
Yuki Tsunoda. He's done quite well in qualifying against Pierre. Yeah. He's still been beaten, but it's not been the white.
I think I'm going to go 6 on this one, just because I think when it comes to the race, there's been glimpses of good performance, but there's just the thing is for me, it's just a consistency. I just haven't really seen.
I think I'm going to say 5. I
was leaning towards
Yuki,
5,
but I'm going to say 5.
Not in like not taking 5 as in a bad number, but taking 5 as in like just average. Straight
bang in the
middle of the
middle.
line, bang.
Done
because
job.
I mean, Canada was such an L.
That's on a
Silverstone
serious level.
takes out Pierre, such an L.
Yeah, that's the inconsistency. I think Singapore just like bins it sort of, and it's like that crash happy element of him is still kind of there. But in terms of actual just pace throughout the season, for a lot of it, he's matched Pierre Gasly, and we were raving about Pierre Gasly as like the best mid sort of pack runner in like 2020 when he had that great season at AlphaTauri, obviously won at Italy. So he's had a good driver up against him, and he's like probably done what I would expect Yuki Tsunoda to do in his second season.
Yeah, the progression hasn't been quite.
It's not been
what I hoped.
Boom, but it's been like boom.
Okay, so what about Pierre then? That's tough, isn't it? Because that car's not been as good.
But
he also like he's drops off this season.
Has he dropped off, or has Yuki just stepped closer?
No, I think he's dropped off.
Do you reckon? Do you reckon both have happened?
I think there's a gradual move towards each other, I would say.
I think
Pierre's not been.
But where Gasly was last season compared to now, like it's.
He did get that P. It's a 5 in Baku, I think he got.
Yeah, but I think for me, I think I've got to go 5, maybe even a 4, just because I think.
I'm thinking maybe 4.
I'm thinking
maybe 4.
He's been at that team for as long as he has, and
he's so done with that team. He's just so done with that team.
Yeah, he's checked out.
He's got no ambition to be there. And last season, he was driving driving it to death, and he was doing a really good job with it. This season, I think it's just more like he knows he won't be able to get out of it, and then eventually could get out of it. And it's like, what's the point of me sort of carrying on him? I think he's just like even the last race we just watched there, like he's towards the back of the grid, and it's like, mate, you're clearly just not. There's something not quite clogged on there.
So how do you think he'll do at Alpine?
I think he'll be good.
I'm hopeful.
I think he'll be good.
In much better equipment.
I think
he'll be good.
with those two. I think we're going to see a real feisty relationship there.
Yeah, I can't.
Not because of because obviously they used to kart with each other, yada yada. I just think it's both of them are going to be like, no, I'm number one. No, I'm number one. And then the fact that they're going to have that conversation of who's number one in itself makes it like a bit more.
The fact that and also the fact that there's history there, and the fact that Ocon, a feisty end to his teammateship with Alonso, feisty end to his teammateship with Perez as well.
They're both French and a French team. Yeah. It's like, oof.
Mick Schumacher.
Oof.
I'm going to say 5, actually.
Yeah,
again,
I think 5.
Down the middle. I think not bad enough to merit losing his seat, but because it's Haas and their specific situation where they're not at the budget cap, or they haven't been at the budget cap, I think that's hurt him more. And I think there's stuff off track that maybe's like mixed. I've heard about like mixed team. Apparently there's been some, Ralph Schumacher.
Oh yeah, Ralph with that weird statement, didn't he?
Yeah. Why is Ralph Schumacher?
I don't think that's helped.
No, not
mixed
at all.
calls.
I think 5 for me as well. I think it's
he's had good moments.
Yeah,
he's match K-Mag.
Yeah,
pace has been
good. If we saw the same sort of results we had in Bahrain the rest of the season, my God, I'll be like, what, P3, P4 in the constructors maybe? But obviously it's just down to the car and also it's down to the drivability. But yeah.
And they haven't really upgraded that car.
Yeah, because obviously like in 2021, obviously all their focus was on the current car.
I think they bought that side pod upgrade to copy Ferrari.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it.
And then it's like, it's a hard one because it's where you can't ignore the crashes.
You can't.
If I was to say like the only big times, sort of Mercedes have sort of crashed is where they were sort of adjusting stuff in like Austria where they both sort of went off, but then it wasn't like through driver fault. Lewis went off because of the wind change and Russell as well. And like, even like if you say how many crashes like Red Bull have had, there's been like one from Monaco with Sergio and with mixed one, it's kind of like, right, what crash he's had? Well, he's had this one here. He's had that. It does count up, unfortunately.
When you combine his 2021 as well, where he had a lot of crashes.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a total kind of issue.
Yeah.
K-Mag?
6.
Yeah. Pole.
I was thinking 6 as
Up
well.
from 5 to 6.
But also he's come in from a year out.
Coming from a year out.
Coming to a
Maybe a 7, honestly. Maybe a 7.
Like coming from a brand new... but also, to be fair, he has made some mistakes as well.
He's been very unlucky with that front wing end plate.
Yeah, that
three times.
It's always that front little wiggle thing.
They need to just stick it on. Yeah, to be honest with you, I think that's part.
But like he has had like some unfortunate moments. There's been some mistakes he's done in part. But at the same time, he's come out like this is going to be the same thing, which I'll probably say for Hulkenberg next year. He's coming in with like being out of the sport and straight away on the pace, like being there and with his teammate.
I think it's helped though that these were new cars for everyone.
Yeah.
And he was racing last year, doing a bit of like IMSA, like in the States.
But it's not F1 though.
No, but these cars are totally different to like the cars in 2021. So all I'm saying is I think that's helped his transition.
Yeah.
I think he's not, this is why I think Checo was so close to Max at the start of the year, because Max wasn't carrying that car knowledge that he clearly had of that 21 Red Bull and that. But yeah, I would say, I think 6 as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Meg. Stroll. There's been some okay moments, but given how many years Lance has been in the sport and the nature of some of these mistakes that he's made, it's between a 3 and I might just say 4, just because he has got quite 4. A few qualifying dubs on Seb.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say 4 and then not speak of it ever.
Yeah, I think 4. He's made some pretty colossal.
That Alonso thing again,
and Vettel
was just, and Vettel against
your teammate in Brazil.
Like,
I know that's like recent.
Oh, come on. It's a bit of recency bias probably as well, but it's just silly stuff, man. You can't be doing it.
Yeah, I think it's 4, especially when you got his second year with Vettel, and he's still like slapping your ass about showing how it's actually done.
And got out qualified by Hulkenberg.
Yeah,
peak. Yeah,
one of those first 2.
Yeah, 4 for me.
What about Seb? Because I think he's had a sensational season. Like in terms of like where the Aston Martin should be, he's 10th in the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah.
He's right up there. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
top
close to
bar.
Ricardo. He's
Yeah,
top bar.
same points with Ricardo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe 8. I know because he missed the first 2 races.
Yeah.
Got to take that into account.
Yeah.
He then also did have like that spin in Australia that was really foolish. And I was a bit worried then. But then actually, no, some of his performances have been stellar.
Yeah.
He is a 4-time world champion with the amount of experience he's got. I would expect higher levels. I'm going to say 8.
Yeah,
I think I might just go 7. I think there's been glimpses where I think the one of his things he's been struggling with is qualifying. It's always been funny whenever he doesn't get out of Q1, he's so angry about it.
He has been really close to the cutoff quite a few
Yeah, but that's the thing though. That's the thing. It's just like,
what? Are you serious?
It's like, what again? It's like, mate, we don't normally get out of Q1 anyway.
Yeah,
So why are you acting like we're always in Q3? I think I'll give it 7. I think you just need. I think you needed to work a bit more on qualifying. I think in total, I think the racing was good, and he always showed up sort of Lance. And there's been times where Lance was doing better than him, but at the same time, I think I think I'll just put him there.
Joe Guan Yu.
Zhou.
8. I'm going to give him 8.
I'm going to say 7.
Yeah, I'm going to say 7 as well.
I think
really
yeah.
solid. Like debut season, like genuinely very, very good. Matched Bottas a lot. Obviously got really unlucky at the start of the season with breakdowns and all this jazz. Even Silverstone.
It's frustrating the amount of technical DNFs he's had. He hasn't been able to show us as much as
People look at the driver
see.
standings and go.
But just before he did have those breakdowns, he was still in really good positions.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about it in the live show that like I reckon basically the engine was turned up too much where it was showing full potential, but then the actual car didn't have any much reliability. So therefore, both him and Bottas were able to get really good results, and also to get decent points on your debut as well.
Yeah,
it's insane.
I reckon he probably lost at least 20 points from breakdowns or getting taken out.
If he didn't break down at all, if that car was fully reliable and didn't break down as much as it did, I think without a question we would have been like 8 for everyone.
Yeah,
I think it'd be 8, but that's why I'm giving it to him. Just because I think it's his first season as
8
well.
qualifying dubs against Valtteri as well.
Yeah.
14-8 to Valtteri.
What 22? That's actually
When you consider like Yuki almost got completely wiped.
And this is a rookie as well. This is the main thing. This is a rookie.
Yeah.
Like not just coming from F2, and it's I was lucky enough to meet him in Bahrain, and like he's just the most down to earth guy, and he's just learning so much, and especially from Bottas as well. Bottas has been a great mentor to him. Where obviously Hayden sort of speaks to Joe quite a bit because he plays a bit of F1 and always talks about he just get mentored quite a bit. Like even we were mentioning before of in Brazil being told from his teammate, right, go for this corner here, although he didn't take on the advice. Like that's still showing the mentorship from it, and he's clearly taken it into account. But
what about Valtteri then? I'm thinking 6 for Valtteri. He had a really good start to the season.
I think 5 would be a bit harsh because he did have a really good start to the season.
But also,
And the cars kind of dropped off a lot.
the cars
at the end
dropped
of
off
the
a
season as
lot.
well.
But I don't know. I just would have expected him to do a better job relative to Joe.
Yeah, I think.
Given his
I'm between 6 and 7 just because of that. Yeah, I think it's hard to judge because we know the car has dropped off, and I think that's why in the most recent races the positions and points haven't been there because the car has just been dialed down.
Because he was the one delivering the points at the start of the season. He's brought the vast.
He is the reason
points.
why Alfa Romeo have ended up where they are.
But also he also has had technical issues as well as Joe.
Yeah.
And where he's been in good points deserving positions as well. I think I'm between 6
my
and
expectations are high.
and I think that's why I'm between 6 and 7 because he's not the one who's higher above Joe. Where in qualifying, for example, that's where the car is working. Who's above who there? So I think I'm between. I'll go 6. I think then in that case because he should be. I think he should have been a bit better in qualifying.
He's done what you would expect him to do at the bare minimum. I reckon.
Yeah,
probably.
Right,
We'll go next.
McLaren boys. Come on, Daniel. Just trying to, because there have been some. I'm gonna say 3.
yeah. Good old Daniel Rick 3.
Yeah, on brand.
Oh, yeah,
on
true.
brand.
True.
On
On
brand.
brand. Yeah, I think you can't do any more than that, really, can
can't
you?
be higher.
It's like there has been glimpses of hope, and the big one that comes to everyone's mind is Mexico. But I think the issue there,
Monza was quality,
and Monza was also good as well.
That was
Yeah,
unfortunate.
20-2 in qualifying to Lando.
Yeah.
which was always going to be again. I think race pace hasn't been that bad that's why it's
I think that's been the story of it as well, where wherever he qualifies is pretty much where he'll finish.
Yeah.
And I think there's
He's
been
not
so
got
many
enough pace to overtake.
Yeah, and there's been so many times where he's just been knocked out of like Q1 by like a tenth or like 100th of a thousandth of a second, especially with like sometimes with Vettel as well, where he's just been knocked out. But then there'll be cases where, like, I would always say, you know, a lot of the time his strategy is not being correct. Where like loads of us could look at like his race
Baku,
pace.
he was arguably quicker than Norris in Baku. And
and then the strategy fell him away from that, and that's not on him. That's very much the team's decision.
1,000.
But the driver does have to take some responsibility, and he clearly has not been able to adapt to the car. But he does also need to remember he's not the poster boy from McLaren. That's very much allowed.
Well, unfortunately, he's not, and I think he wanted to be when he came in. But I think Lando's done just an unreal job.
I mean, this is the thing. What would you rate him?
I mean, Lando is at 9, surely.
I agree.
I agree as well.
Surely.
Yeah, it has to be.
Like, what's he?
I mean, what more, without fucking, going to like over the top, but like actually what more can he do?
What more could you expect?
Really?
Realistically.
Yeah.
Like he's had this high profile teammate come in, and 2 seasons in a row, he's convincingly kind of outperformed him.
Yeah.
Well, he could have got a win in Monza. That's a joke. That's a joke.
No, but it's like, and you know what, like, I think this year...
But he's
there
also got
haven't been the
multiple podiums
opportunities.
with McLaren as well,
Yeah.
which if you were to say that like 3 years ago, you'd be like, mate, you're having a laugh. Like, it's insane. Like,
Considering the amount of
time.
times he's been sick as well.
Yeah.
And he's still been able to deliver the
Stop
Even
eating
Brazil.
dodgy food, Lando.
Yeah,
Don't drink the local tap water. Get bottled water.
Yeah, I was gonna say someone cook for this man.
Yeah, I think it's a 9.
Yeah, I mean, like if you had 2 drivers like that at McLaren with cars tailored to you, and then you'd be clearly like you could even potentially, I don't know what the numbers would be, but you could in theory get maybe even like second.
I think there's an argument for maybe a 10, but I think 9.
I think it would have been 10 if on those occasions where there was glimpses of like a podium and stuff for the team aspect, like their strategies haven't always been good. It's been bad for Ricciardo, and it's been bad times for Lando as well.
Yeah, true.
And I think it's but like I think I think 9's fine.
All right, Ocon.
6, I think. I feel like he's quite underrated because we don't ever really see him that much.
7.
I want to say 7 as well. Just because but then a lot of, if you look at the points for this season,
Doesn't
a lot
tell
of
the
it
story, does it?
A lot of it does come down to Alonso's engine just blowing up every other
Alonso's
weekend.
been a better driver than Ocon, 100%.
Yeah, 1,000%. But then
Ocon's
again,
still
you
done a good job.
expect that, don't you? So
Alonso slaps up everyone.
yeah.
Whoever's Alonso's
to be fair
teammate's doomed.
to be fair to Alonso though, he has also there's been times where Alonso has slapped up, but there's been times where Ocon has also easily sort of
Yeah,
gone
battered
the
back,
fight.
Fernando.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think for me,
Well, it's
what I look at,
12-10 to Alonso in qualifying.
that's solid. That's a good effort from
Yeah.
Esteban. I think for me, I would probably say 7 definitely, as well as that. Obviously, those qualifying stats pretty good. He's done enough as a second driver, you would argue, in that team to take 4th in the Constructors' Championship. Like, he's been that guy that's been able to, he's beaten Alonso, hasn't he? Points?
Outscored him.
Yeah.
And obviously, Alonso's had a lot of bad luck, but he's been there enough to go,
Pick up the pieces.
I can pick up some points where I need to and drag Alpine as well. It's not been like it's not been one drive having to do a lot of the heavy lifting.
I think compared to like last year, they were both very, very level in qualifying and both very, very level in race. I think Alonso's taken a step forward relative to Ocon this year in race performance, but I think qualifying's been great. I think, again, when you're up against Fernando Alonso, you've got to hold a driver to different standards when they're up against a teammate of that caliber. So I think he's done a great job. But Alonso, it's a 9 easy again for me.
Ooh, that's good actually.
Because
I want to say an 8.
I'm going to go 8.
I want to
Really?
say an 8 for Fernando.
see, for me, I think it's clear 9.
It's just because,
What's
yes, he's
holding
been
him back?
unlucky. He's been unlucky. But Fernando Alonso,
for one, his teammate outscored him. So
technically speaking, his teammate outscored
Because
him.
his car kept breaking.
That is true, but then you look at qualifying and it wasn't like... I would expect Fernando Alonso, even aged 57, to get clearly the better of Esteban Ocon in qualifying. Maybe I'm underestimating Esteban.
Yeah, but
in
that's
that
what I mean.
situation.
That's what I think a lot of this comes down to
How do you rate Ocon? Yeah, I hear that.
And I think that's where I look at Ocon and I think he is very much underrated. I think last season, for example, no one really sort of took his performance that serious because everyone's sort of talking about Alonso just coming in for this new team and just slapping everybody up sort of thing. But then there's Alonso's season has been sort of like tarnished a little bit because of like all the amount of like the mechanical breakdowns, which isn't his fault.
No. P2 qualifying Canada.
Yeah.
Was on for maybe front row in Australia if the hydraulics hadn't broken.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is
There's some crazy stuff there. Yeah,
there have been some like mad high peaks. But then the car, he was never going to hold on to those.
But then I think you have like the inter-team battle where it's not just not just Ocon going against Alonso. It's also Alonso also throwing some stuff
Takes
back
two to
as well.
tango, yeah.
Exactly, and I think that's why I don't rate him as higher than that, because it's like he's also still like, for example,
he did drive into the back.
I was
of Ocon in Brazil.
literally about to say that,
like he did that.
agree.
Like, for example, we were talking about earlier, Vettel swapping the signs in Parc Fermé. I could see Alonso still doing that to this day. And it's a bit like, mate, come on, grow up a little bit sort of thing. But
Nah,
it doesn't need to. It's already. But yeah, so that's where I reckon.
8.3. Right.
I'll do that.
No points. No points. It has to be a clear number.
No, because you both said 8. And I said,
Oh, I see. Sorry. I thought you were like, all right, I'm going to go 8.3.
I'm not changing- I'm not changing my
No.
No.
It's on to the top 3 teams now.
Yep, Mercedes, George Russell, first season at Mercedes.
8.
Well, I think an 8.
Important context.
Yeah.
Won a race.
Yeah.
Beating his teammate. Won a race.
7-time world champion.
Started
Took out science.
from the bottom now.
Yeah.
I think,
Squeezed the Haas for no reason.
yeah. There's been times, I think, the reason I haven't got,
Nice. Good man.
I think it would be higher if he hadn't had those on track sort of incidents where he thinks he's got the overtake done, like on the Haas, or I can't remember the other person it was, thinks he's got it done, and then tries to get back onto the racing line, and then sort of causes like the Kevin Magnussen sort of front wing flap sort of going off.
But before Silverstone, I think he's a easy 9, maybe even a 10.
No.
First year of that team is. I know he's
Every race top 5, multiple podiums.
Ridiculous.
Like, it was an insane
your
start to
first
the
season at a team. I know he's got experience at Mercedes. I get that, but like first full
Not
season
driving
at a
that
team.
car though, like that exact car.
of course.
So,
Yeah.
it's
And that
different.
Brazil win, by the way, was like impeccable.
Yeah,
Like,
he
from
did
start
nothing.
to
He
finish.
did nothing wrong at
Yeah,
all.
the only thing he did wrong was spin out in qualifying, and ironically that helped him.
Yeah.
So
think-
it's still perfect.
Yeah, in reality, it's probably. I think an 8, just because there were some pretty stinky mistakes from George.
Honestly, I think
holding
without
him back a
those,
bit.
genuinely without Singapore and then Kota, I would probably give him a 9.
Hamilton?
He's got to iron that out. Oof.
Lewis. I'm gonna say 9 for Lewis.
Better than George.
Yeah, I think Lewis has had a better season than George because I think which relies on
Did have a lot of P2s.
relies on the context that
Yeah.
Lewis was the one being used as the test mule for this car for Mercedes to get on top of it at the start of the season. That the Mercedes have said this, that Lewis was the one they were given these experimental setups to. How much of a difference did that make? Look, for me,
But I would argue he's the more experienced driver, and therefore
that's why
be
they
able
gave it
to.
to him.
Yeah, but then I don't think then you can then rank him higher because even if he was, but all of them were being testing mules because it's a brand new car anyway.
not to the same extent.
But I mean,
I mean, Mercedes have out and out come out and said that they
but I mean, it's
they
also
were more
it's-
aggressive with Lewis's setups to test the extremes of the car. To what extent that made a difference, I don't know. Because George definitely was clear of Lewis at the start of the season.
I think I'll give him an 8. I can totally hear what you're saying in terms of like testing like the more extreme stuff onto the cars. But then I do think like, well, everyone else is also driving a brand new car, and also that Mercedes at the get-go, you've got to remember they were absolutely awful when it first came out. So then to go from that anyway to go getting higher, and then, to Lewis's credit though, he's been on the podium.
They were awful relative to their expectations, but they were still clear of the midfield.
But like, Lewis has got in podiums, but so has George. But then I wouldn't say Hamilton's had a better season because at the end of the day he didn't get the win, and he didn't finish higher than him in standings. And this is George's first time doing that.
And it wasn't really one of those where I look back and go, Lewis really could have had the better of George because of a point. Like with Alonso, Alonso quite comfortably could have beaten Ocon without the mechanical failure.
And I think in the latter stage,
I don't have that with Lewis and George. George was just across the season.
Yeah, and the latter stage of the season, Hamilton was better, absolutely.
Yeah, 1,000.
But then also that's when it came to the sprint race and came to qualifying. I mean, then that was all George's pace. Kind of.
It was the Brazil was harsh on him because of timing, obviously as well, which was tough. And he did
obviously
recover well with the damage in the race. To be fair,
that Mercedes went from comfortably third quickest car to that, in the right circumstances, quickest second.
Yeah.
By the end of the season, so that allowed. Yeah, look, to be honest, I don't think I'm not saying there's much in it. Like for me, like George is between an 8 and a 9, and Lewis is a 9. Like I think it's tight, but I don't know.
British bias.
I'm giving.
They're both British, man.
I'm giving him.
So another 8.3 then.
I feel
What are you giving
harsh. I'm giving him a 7. The average is going to be 8.
Oh wow.
Math.
I'm not. I swear. It's just George is in his first season. Beat him.
Carlos Sainz, 7:15 beaten in qualifying against Charles Leclerc. Spun in Australia on his own.
Poor beginning of the season.
A lot of gravel
And a lot of his own problems as well.
Like Barcelona as well, going to the gravel. Like it's just the very beginning of the season, it was very much like it was gonna become a meme of him, of like constantly going to the gravel, binning it and stuff. But then he turned it around though, absolutely.
7.
Yeah, maybe I think 7.
I think 7's calling to me.
Yeah.
I'm struggling between a 6 and a 7. I think 7's probably fair. I think if you look at the Drivers' Championship, it's not too dissimilar.
Doesn't relate, yeah.
It's not crazily far apart. No. He was literally pole, got taken out, so it's a tough one.
Yeah.
I can settle for 7, that's all right.
I've not got a strong... Yeah, there's nothing strong. What about Charles Leclerc then? Ooh. I mean, I think it's probably... the high-profile mistakes are there, but also the amount of pole positions he got. Bahrain, that overtake on Max Verstappen first race. Oh,
brilliant, yeah.
Worldy.
Into turns 3, 4, 5, yeah. I think I'm going to go, I want to say 8.
I think I'm going to go 9.
Yeah, maybe even 9 actually. Because I do forget how many times he's got poled and stuff, and in most of the times he hasn't got the results, it's just been because
Verstappen's been there.
Well, either Verstappen or the Ferrari strategies.
Ferrari has been awful.
You know what? Yeah, I'll go. I will go 9 on this one then. Yeah. I think I feel really bad for him. I feel like the team have really let
Imola and France were big mistakes.
Yes.
No question.
I think this is the problem. This is why I'm going to give him an 8, just because as much as Ferrari have doomed him a bit, and he's got second in the Drivers' Championship still. Great stuff. Love that from him. There's also been parts of it, or like elements of it, that are himself. Like, if we're going to be honest.
Yeah.
His mentality is not good and is not strong enough right now to compete with Max Verstappen, in my opinion. Not to like a crazy degree, but he still beats himself up too much.
There's still a
pressure
or two there.
There's still pressure points that seem a tiny bit too much for him as well. I think especially as well, Paul Ricard was such a huge turning point in the season.
Yeah.
Or like a final turning point of like, it's done now.
Yeah,
that was a huge
That was the nail in the coffin. Basically.
And I don't want to judge him on like one thing, but I think there's been a couple of mistakes where I'm just like...
there's like high profile moments, you sink or swim and
There's been times where he's sank.
I think,
So I'll give him an 8.
It's a shame. And then finally, Red Bull. Sergio Perez is
hard, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 7.
Yeah, I hear that. I think he's done enough as a second driver.
Yeah, second driver through.
I know. The only thing I would say is that given the pace that Max has been able to extract out of the Red Bull, for him to not finish second,
there's been a big enough gap between the two of them. Yeah. If it is what's like, he's done good, as you said. I think we all knew him moving into it is very much going to be like, you are going to be second driver role. Yeah, it kind of seemed like he was the last one to know about that situation of like that's what his role is there. I do also have to take into account my own opinion of what happened in Monaco, looking over the onboard and stuff. For me, it does look like he did deliberately crash. When the news first came out,
crash gate.
When news first came out, I thought it was complete bullshit because I hold drivers' caliber to much higher. Yeah. Like, yes, we've had crash gate before. We've had drivers deliberately crash on purpose yonks ago.
Yeah.
But now I see the drivers are like, okay, that's been drawing a line and going past that. And when I heard the news come out about it, at first I was a bit like, no, that's completely it can't be happening. And I think that's really just so petty. And then the onboards came out, including the telemetry, where you can compare it to how someone normally goes through that corner.
It's very difficult to explain.
And for that,
the lack of counter steer,
and for that, like anyone who's choosing to deliberately crash in an F1 race, just what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, it's so unprofessional and like. Honestly, if the FIA are going to investigate into this, which I think
the teams aren't pushing for it.
The teams aren't pushing for it, but the FIA have said they're happy to look into it. And I think even like Toto Wolff said there's been too much PR stuff anyway.
Yeah.
I think they would generally find that the ruling there that like he did deliberately crash on purpose, and then it has so many implications then of like, all right, well then that technically means you've kind of cheated. That means then Red Bull you shouldn't get that race win then. And it opens up a massive can of worms. But the fact that he chose to, the fact that he chose to do that, I'm like, mate, fuck off. Like you should be now.
You lose him a point.
Yeah,
Loses him a point.
You are very much second driver. You'll never be number one doing that again.
I think I'm going to give Checo a 7 because the gap to Max has been big, but I think that Max Verstappen has just been.
The problem is the gap to Max is always big. And I think he's been the only one that's got that second Red Bull seat where you can go, yeah, he's done enough to back up Max.
Yeah, there's quite a few times he's been 2-3 tenths off in qualifying, which is like...
Yeah.
Or he's finishing second in races consistently. And I'm like, yeah, fair enough, Sergio.
But I guess...
That's what you need to do ultimately.
Yeah, I hold Max to a very high level and Verstappen out of 10. I mean, it's hard to not give him a 10.
Yeah.
There's a few. Like, I think Brazil was just nonsense.
I think 9.
Silly.
If you were to go 9, because you would have to count in what happened in Brazil, but that's such a rarity.
And also, like,
it's the only time this season it's happened.
I would give him a 10.
Yeah, and I think that's just a bit of petulance. Like
he's
more of
15
an
races.
he's more of an off-track thing. Yeah, in terms of the racing driver.
Like he's won the most races in a season. Record that's
percentage as well.
Yeah, and it's insane what he's been able to do. Like him and the team have just gelled that car so well to make it work for Max, and like rightfully so. That's what the whole reason they're all there for. And so to win like championship with like 4 or 5 races to go comfortably, and it's insane.
He's killed it. It's been the perfect. It's a team sport, and
he's done everything he should have done.
Yeah. And even when he did have like the little spin he did in Hungary,
still won.
Still just 360'd it. Carried on.
That just shows how far. That shows how far ahead he was.
Spa.
Like he still do a spin.
P14,
and then
the first within 12 laps, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's nuts. He's been on
AI mode on 0 is insane.
Yeah. That's it. We're done. That's our ratings.
Yeah, ratings for the season.
Let us know your ratings down in the comments below.
Yes, please do. Who are you giving 10?
Someone copy and paste all the drivers' numbers and then put your ratings down below.
Yeah, whoever that hero is who does that, who puts all the names there.
We'll pin that comment
from you. Yeah.
And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, just say it out loud right now.
Just
say
Just say it. We'll hear it. Yeah. If it's loud enough, we will hear it. So.
Right, let's wrap it there then. We've got to do our awards next.
We are indeed.
That's literally the reason why we're still dressed like this.
It is. So stick around for our awards. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and of course like the pod if you enjoyed this one. The awards will be out next week, hopefully, as you're watching this one. We're going to go through a multitude of different categories and nominees for that one. If you're listening on Spotify or any streaming platforms, make sure to give us a good rating. Much appreciated. Thank you, everyone. Matt, thank you very much for hopping on.
Pleasure, boys. Thank you so much for having me on.
See you for the awards.
We'll see you at the awards.
We'll see you at the awards.
Bow tie for a reason, baby.
Come on.
See ya.
Adios.